Today, my guest is Adriane Schwager, co-founder and CEO of GrowthAssistant, which she founded in 2021 with her seventh grade childhood friend, which is now an eight-figure per year staffing and recruiting agency that provides full-time offshore employees to help digital marketing teams offload their manual labor tasks at a very high level. And so, Adriane, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know by listening to some of your appearances, right, that you refer to yourself or one of your zones of genius as being in people operations. And so with that said, what is the number one way you've been able to leverage that skill or otherwise to really help e-commerce companies in specific to grow and scale their businesses?
Yeah, so that's correct. My one of my zone of geniuses is people operations. My co-founder Jesse Pujji, his unfair advantage, I'll call it, is that he has a bunch of digital marketing people in his network. And his Twitter's blown up, and there's been a few things that we've gotten lucky with. Ultimately, he's a great storyteller, and that's why his Twitter blew up, and that's why we got a bunch of leads at one point and our big growth story. However, we married kind of our brains. He had the digital marketing background and expertise. I had the people operations. So I now find offshore teams. I call them global teams. Offshore seems like an old term to me now. They're global teams. So I find global teams to plug in and help augment some of the marketing tasks that are pretty manually intensive for people now. So if you're running ads, or reporting on ads or anything like that. If typically you're the strategy person running that, and if you're the strategy person running that, the implementation work is 30 to 40% of your time. So if you can offload that 30 to 40% of your time into global talent for flighting the ads, reporting on them, doing creative, like short tweaks to, creative. I need this creative cropped 20 different ways for different platforms, right? Those are great examples of tasks that you can get a higher ROI if you use global talent for that. So I help find really high quality global talent for in-house brand teams. Now we kind of start in marketing, that's our wedge, but for a lot of our ecom customers, we're kind of all parts of their operation. So anywhere from customer support, Shopify backend stuff, inventory management. Think of anything where you have a pretty implementation heavy piece, which is a lot of ecom, especially when you're starting out, right? Everything's in a spreadsheet or 4 or 5 different systems and you're linking them together, and that takes a significant amount of time. But if you could use that strategy resource that you hired that person for to do 30% more strategy, your business is going to scale that much faster. So our some of our best success stories are when we came in early with a ecom company. They scaled fast. We scaled fast with them, and we've had a really long relationship where growth assistants are running the majority of their operations.
Yeah, that's amazing. A couple of things off the top of my head, though, as someone who is horrible at operations, is not my zone of genius. So I was glad to have people on who know what they're doing. Um, how does that integrate into like teams where maybe you have service providers or consultants? Do they integrate well into those teams, or is it sort of a separate thing? And then sort of similar to that is like with AI blowing up these days, everybody wants to offload everything to AI. So I was curious, do they integrate well? Does it integrate into AI? And what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think the integration process, we call it our implementation period, right? When we want to make sure that relationship is really sticky. So in order for that to happen, the customer has to have an experience and the growth assistant has to have an experience that really wows them. That this is the other piece of my zone of genius is creating these experiences. And I've discovered it more and more when I'm running this business. The in the first, call it 2 weeks, the client should feel some lift, right? Something is off their plate that was weighing them down, and this person's got it now, right? Part of the coaching of that, though, right, for on the client side, is that we've got to coach the clients on how to do that because a lot of times things are living in a million different places, right? But we have some templates that are very helpful to the client, and to get it to an SOP version that is light touch to do, right? If you're doing it, record yourself, throw it in a loom, put it in a doc, right? So this person isn't coming back and having to ask you, what was that next step? What was that next step, right? That actually isn't a great onboarding experience for the talent either, right? If they're having to do that. So, but we know a lot of the clients we're dealing with are in that fast scale mode,
Hmm.
and they don't necessarily have that yet. Some do, right? Biggie's like True Classic, for example, they do. They've got their SOPs down, but they're always experimenting and changing things. So, that's one of the things that where we kind of do a plus one with the clients of, all right, do you need extra help with that onboarding period?
That sounds amazing. Yeah, because if you could get 2 weeks to that lift, where you actually feel certain that this is going to work out, that sounds awesome. And so, what about with AI though?
With AI, what in 2025 specifically, we started dabbling around with it in 2024. But for 2025, if our assistants can bring AI to your business, how powerful is that, right? So really helping people, like kind of like what I was explaining earlier, helping people is really my why. And if we can just help people by bringing them a little bit of AI assistance, there are so many AI tools out there now. I forget the most recent count that I saw. It's just like every count is like, quadrupling every time. And a
Right.
lot of times business owners don't know which way to go, what to use, right? They actually could benefit from like a trimmed down scope,
Yeah.
and that your assistant knows that AI tool very well and can bring it to your business. So that is an initiative for us for 2025 for sure.
That's amazing. And so, do your teams work when you are bringing this talent? Do they work across multiple companies, or are they like exclusive to a company?
Exclusive to a company. That's how we started from day one. I think it's preferred by the talent, right? Global talent is sometimes they're like piecing together jobs and gigs, right? And if I can offer them an opportunity where they're going to go deep with one client and have a great experience, it's a much preferred, oh, probably not for everybody, but for the majority of people, a much preferred experience that way. So only one client.
That makes sense because it's probably preferred by the companies as well. I mean, you have better buy-in, more loyalty, and they get better and better over time, obviously, as they understand your business, I would imagine. So what do you say to I'm sure maybe I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure you encounter people who are skeptical that you can actually find teams for them because they've tried to do this themselves in the past and they've had bad results. What do you say to someone who's like, I don't know if I could find a team that's good for me?
Yeah, the I would say that that is why you hire us. We have so many people that are like we actually have the sales call with them, right? Get all their information. This is what we do, but they're hustly. Like startup founders are hustly, right? So they want to go try it themselves and we encourage them to do so. Go try it yourself. I mean, part of our secret sauce, my background in people ops and talent, right, is the vetting process to eliminate that risk. Think of all the time that founder or whoever's the manager, whatever, is doing to find the talent globally. We know the markets to be in. We've got a referral network, our vetting tools. This is our business. This is what we do. So I will say I can confidently say I do it better than anyone else. But we've been doing it for years. And before that, I mean, talent was my role. So um,
What specifically is it about what you do yourself that makes you so good at this, you think?
So there's a couple of different things. We have obviously you got to test for the hard skills, the technical skills, right? We have
Right.
a bunch of proprietary assessments to do that, right? Most people could probably go out and find a proprietary or not a proprietary, but a test they could buy off the shelf to have them do it, right? But it's global talent. No one's coming in your office to do this, right? So you can't watch them take it, right? So you got to figure out a system to be able to watch the implementation of the test, right? And then there's another, I'll say, even more important piece to this is durable skills. That's what we refer to them as. But they're the skills like, are they proactive, attention to detail, the things that will not over time change in importance to that role. And so at all phases of our process, we're really getting out of the client and sometimes they don't even know. So we've got to lead them there of what is the most important skills. And then we vet for those, right? We find people, we vet for them. They had to have had the experience similar to what we're looking for too. A lot of these companies you'll find that pop up that do global talent, um, they'll find you someone that can do the role, right? We think they can do the role, but their vetting's loose. I was talking to a founder about a month ago, and she said she hired a group of six and four just absolutely bombed within a month. It was such a waste of her time. She's a consultant. She makes $1,000 an hour consulting, and she spent so much time onboarding these people, then offboarding and having to do it all herself again.
Right.
So,
Yeah, so you basically saved her a lot of time that translates to dollars, obviously, and frustration. But so basically, it's your ability to focus tightly on what is actually the task that's needed, and then obviously a tight vetting process, it sounds like,
yeah.
plus probably massive people skills.
Yes, yes. And we're masters at hearing what's not said,
Sniffing
right?
out the bull, the BS on the end of the, you know what I mean? Is
Yeah.
that probably a lot to do with
Yes,
it?
yes, that's a lot to do with it. But on the client side too, what's not being said, what is the actual business problem? Like they'll say, okay, I need a customer service agent, right? Okay, great. But what business problem are you trying to solve? Because a lot of times people who are hiring aren't necessarily the role they see is won't necessarily fix that underlying business issue that they're trying to solve. So we want to make sure we're asking questions to get that deep into the real issue of the company and what we're helping them solve.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And so, that being said, I saw a little bit on LinkedIn about True Classic Teas and that great case study that Jesse had put out, which I thought was amazing. Before we go, off the top of your head, do you have any examples or case studies that you could share in addition to that, that maybe here's what they were like before and here's what they were like after?
Yeah, I think one that's super applicable and has been with us for almost our entire existence is Open Store, which is actually an aggregator of ecom business. So they have growth assistants in every piece of their operation. We joined at a very early stage with them. So on an aggregator, right, you've got to acquire the brand, then you have to map that brand to the internal standards, right? So there's a bunch of changes that happen. Then after that, even like making sure the Shopify page is the same way we set up the Shopify page, so the tracking's correct, so that the marketing dollars are spent the right way. We're in the marketing team that then markets for all those brands. We're even doing like high level project management of design work for those brands. So we're
Wow.
in every piece of that operation, SDR work to find the brands to come in, right? They're as an aggregator, they're sharing customers, right? That's their big value. So understanding what customers, right? And the SDR has to understand that to be able to go find more brands that hit.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you guys got it really honed in and you're working hard at expanding, obviously. And so that being said, where can someone go to find out more about what you guys are doing and what you do?
Yeah, a bunch of different ways. The easiest one is probably our website, so growthassistant.com. There's a button on there, a CTA, click it, you can book a meeting. There's also some downloadable material on there that's sometimes helpful, like best practices and stuff like that, that we offer, for free. Just sign up. I'm actually kicking off a newsletter this week called Growth Spurt, like Growth Expert, Growth Spurt. So that would be another way we're gonna like give best of tips and case studies and stuff like that that'll start being circulated. The sign up for that, you'll be able to find it on my LinkedIn, Adriane Schwager. My X is ASchwags3, ASCHWAGS3, on Twitter. So Twitter X, whatever we're calling it these days.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks for having me, Mark.